With a mushroom cloud of smoke to mark its location, helicopters were among 5 aircraft today continuing an aerial attack on Port Stephens's major outbreak at Oyster Cove. Several hundred hectares of bush and scrub have been consumed by the flames from 7 outbreaks burning across the Shire. Firefighters worked to contain them ahead of tomorrow's forecast worsening of weather conditions, while RFS investigators spent the day pinpointing how the blazes began. Of particular interest, the one fanned by strong and gusty winds that crossed Lemon Tree Passage Road and destroyed the Hardigan house at Saltash.
Has someone gone and lit again over here to bring the fire back this way?
Arson is one line of inquiry fire investigators and police are pursuing.
At this stage, we couldn't give an accurate answer on the initial cause. We're certainly suspicious and we'll follow it up.
What can be confirmed from our pictures is that flames from the bushfire hadn't reached the Hardigan house before it caught alight. Burning embers blown ahead of the approaching outbreak ignited material that had fallen on the roof, providing a graphic example of why the RFS warns residents to clean up before the bushfire season.
This is really it, people have got to get out there and clean their gutters, make sure they have breaks around their property, even internally in their property, and generally just clean up for this time of the year.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
It's moved just across the road from its old premises, but the new location for the after-hours GP care is a cut above the previous facility. 2 brand new rooms at the Newcastle Community Health Centre have been set up for the service, with the first patients treated as of 6 o'clock this evening.
Since the flood, which flooded the old clinic space, we've been working at the John Hunter site, and it's really good now to come back into town here so that the people in town can access their care closer to home.
It's expected around 200 people will utilise the bulk billing service weekly, and doctors are encouraging potential patients to phone prior to coming in to streamline the appointment process.
The nurse can assess how urgent their problem is. If they need to see a doctor and seeing one of our GPs is appropriate, then they can be booked into one of our clinics.
Doctors established the Access clinics 4 years ago, following concerns about the standard of patient care available in the Hunter region after hours. Jessica Phillis, NBN News.
It's now dubbed Amazon. Yeah, nice, big, strong woman, yeah, which she is.
Today's flight from Brisbane to Newcastle was full, and from next week, some tickets on the route will be selling for $69. Virgin Blue has teamed up with New South Wales Tourism to fund a $500,000 campaign selling destinations in northern New South Wales to holidaymakers in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane.
It's all about generating more tourism, more traffic, more bums on seats, more hotel rooms, and basically giving it a bit of a tourist injection.
The bulk of this money is for marketing and advertising, and we'll be seeing some money going predominantly into print advertising as well as in the internet.
Newcastle Airport is leading the way with its recent refurbishment, work underway on a new apron to cater for larger aircraft and very healthy passenger numbers.
This year we were looking to do about 970,000 passengers. We're just going to fall just shy of the magic million mark. But with the plans for expansion of the various airlines next year, we'll no doubt we'll crack the million in 2008.
The new tourism campaign will promote short stay holidays in the Hunter, Port Stephens, Coffs Coast, the Tweed, Ballina and Byron Bay. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's been called the Serengeti of the Sea. Covering a massive 800,000 square kilometres, the Coral Sea is more than twice the size of the neighbouring Great Barrier Reef Marine Park. Comprised of a series of spectacular coral reefs, it's a rare example of an untouched, thriving marine environment. Amongst the colourful corals live bountiful fish populations, including rare sharks, manta rays, tuna, barracuda, turtles and unique sea creatures such as the nautilus. But this majestic underwater haven faces an uncertain future, threatened by global warming, commercial fishing and potential oil and gas exploration. To safeguard this underwater sanctuary for future generations, the World Wildlife Fund wants the Australian government to declare the Coral Sea a marine protected area.
This is another piece of amazing marine landscape that is worth protecting, and at the moment has no protection on it at all. So this is something that's in the hands of Australian people to do something about.
If declared, the Coral Sea would become the biggest marine park in the world. The debate over its future is set to become one of contention in the upcoming federal election. While Federal Environment Minister Malcolm Turnbull has labelled WWF's plan as ambitious, Peter Garrett says a Labor government would support the plan.
We think it's an important issue. It needs to get national attention. It needs to have some good policy in place so that we can make sure that those areas which are significant and deserve protection are considered in that way.
Christy Carter, NBN News.
Cars are in Ryan Brown's blood. He sells them for a living, but it's getting behind the wheel. That's his real passion. And later this week, he'll be living out every 21-year-old revhead's dream, racing a V8 at Bathurst.
Done one lap when I was 16 on my L's in a Commodore, so I haven't had the most experience.
Incredibly, this is how the young driver has been learning about the Bathurst circuit, the internet. Thanks to YouTube, he's clocked up some 500 laps via onboard vision of leading drivers from the safety of his couch. He sees it for himself on Thursday in qualifying.
First time hit Skyline at 205 to 210 k's an hour, fourth gear on the limiter. You know, that's where it's going to sort of change from what you actually see on the internet on the in-car camera to real life.
He scored the drive after this testing day at Oran Park only a matter of weeks ago, with his obvious talent along with $15,000 securing the drive in the V8 Development Series. It's now up to him to impress, with all the factory teams watching.
If I can do 200-300 laps and keep it off the wall, keep the car straight, it's hopefully going to make a few eyes sort of stand out.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
It's a qualifier for the actual World Cup in 2009, so hopefully we can get through that and actually make the World Cup.
When it comes to showing just what can be achieved in our region, Peter Bourne's garden was today a showcase for the National Conference of Australian Plant Growers to admire. He's managed to make the most of water use on his property and produce a result plenty of the 300 delegates are keen to learn more about as they tackle one of their current issues, the challenge of climate change.
That's very much what this conference is about climate change and Australian plants coping with the change in climate.
While it might seem patriotic, timely and even just plain common sense to use Australian plants in our gardens, this movement has been trying for 50 years to encourage us to go Indigenous. The Newcastle Committee hosting the conference hopes the plantings in the civic precinct might encourage hunter gardeners to give natives a try, even if it is just to fill a hole.
If just for a second you consider putting in a grevillea or a banksia or something like that, then we're happy that people have considered a native plant.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
The charred trees show just how close the flames came to Veronica Pettifer's saltash home.
The house is fine, which is really good. The shed had, which is bigger than my house, had just half my life in there.
Today, she, along with her son, began the task of sifting through the ash, cleaning up and counting their loss.
All my son's tools, he's a carpenter and builder, my daughter's possessions.
It's not yet known how the bushfire started, but police believe it was deliberately lit and could be linked to several recent arson attacks in the Tilligiri area.
That, someone would just start a fire carelessly or deliberately, whichever, that's caused just so much damage and heartache for a lot of people.
The RFS and the police are working together, our investigators following up on some leads.
Across the creek at Swan Bay, a waterbombing helicopter targeted spot fires from above, while firefighters spent the day backburning to restore containment lines that the blaze jumped last night ahead of a forecast worsening of conditions. Christy Carter, NBN News.
5 helicopters and 5 fixed-wing aircraft were buzzing the bush over Swan Bay today, where last night's southerly change saw the fire again jump containment lines. The advantage of helicopters is that they can fill their 1-tonne buckets from a water source close to the fire without landing, allowing a quicker turnaround. The planes can carry 3 times as much water but need to operate from an airstrip. Today they were based at Cessnock, and as each of the powerful air tractors arrived, they were quickly hooked up to the tanker and filled with 3 tonnes of water and foam. For pilots like Mick Kennedy from Gunnedah, fighting fires makes a change from crop dusting.
We're involved in aerial agriculture, fertilising and treating fields for any problems that farmers have, but this has become a major part of our industry is to help the Rural Fire Service with their bushfire activities over the summer season.
Once the hopper is full, it's back into the air for the 20-minute flight to the fire ground.
The aircraft are great for asset protection in and around the urban interface, and also when we've got running fire out in the open country, particularly these fixed-wing bombers.
The aircraft are just one weapon in the firefighters' arsenal, but a valuable one to back up the efforts of those on the ground. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Six letters are proving to be a thorn in the side of so many across the Hunter region at the moment. Almost every available house or unit is already leased, and quality properties, particularly family homes, are few and far between.
Better properties, especially in the inner suburbs, the family homes, they're going the day they come on the market.
With vacancy rates at a concerning 1.6% across the Lower Hunter, the situation is reaching crisis point. Property managers say tenants can expect to pay upwards of $400 per week for an average 3-bedroom home in popular Lake Macquarie, while a 2-bedroom unit in Newcastle for less than $250 per week is a rare commodity. Wayne Stewart from the Real Estate Institute says the affordability crisis needs to be made a political priority.
It's not going to get any better at all until we see the government's putting some incentives back into the investors' pockets.
Meanwhile, the top end of the market continues to thrive. A spare $4.5 million can buy you Andrew Johns' tri-level mansion at Dixon Park. If the asking price is realised, Joey's house will smash the suburb record of $2.95 million, set by a home just around the corner on John Parade. Jessica Phillis, NBN News. Been outside at night lately? No doubt you would have acquainted yourself with the tens of thousands of critters who had the same idea then. Bogong moths are heading south, having hatched on the black soil plains of Queensland and Western New South Wales in early spring.
And they're moving into the snowy mountains where they spend summer.
Recent strong winds have blown them a little off course, with the nuisance insects inviting themselves in for a stopover at your place. Insect expert Brian Conroy says while the hungry moths can be a pest, it's not your curtains or clothes they have their eye on.
Their main job at this stage is feeding. So they're feeding on nectar, they're building up fat reserves, which allows them to last over summer without feeding then.
The best way to keep them out of your home is to turn outdoor lights off and keep unscreened doors and windows shut. But if you're looking for a unique way to dispose of these insects, perhaps you could try taking a leaf out of a recipe book of an old Aboriginal tribe. It's as simple as burning off the wings and legs and then mashing the moth meat. Apparently it tastes like walnuts. I think I'll stick to the real thing. Jessica Phillis, NBN News.
The tension might be building off the park, but there was nothing but love between Mariners keeper Danny Vukovic and Jets striker Mark Bridge at a promotion on the Central Coast this morning. Following Laurie McKenna's criticism of Jets supporters yesterday, Jets management hit back.
I know that we're short-staffed at times, but I didn't know Laurie was doubling up as marketing manager as well. But we have every faith in our supporters and know that they do travel and the genuine ones will be there.
McKenna has also caused a stir by saying Stu Michalek and Joel Griffiths are the only Jets who will cause problems for the Central Coast. Gary Van Egmond disagrees with that claim as both players make their return to the lineup.
If they're doing their job well, then yes, obviously it does help us, but it's not the be-all and end-all.
Van Egmond wouldn't be drawn on whether Mario Jardel would start his second straight game, and also denied Newcastle would change its playing style to suit the Brazilians' lack of quickness.
We've done a lot of crossing and finishing this week, not just for Mario, but for everyone in general.
Meanwhile, Bridge and Michalek have been selected in the Ollie Rouge squad for the Olympic qualifier against Lebanon later this month. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. It was a tough year in the red and blue, but joining his Australian teammates in the green and gold made it all worthwhile for Kurt Gidley. The utility hopes he can use his experience with the Kangaroos as inspiration for next season with Newcastle.
I guess it's good to finish on a note like this and hopefully go into next year with a positive outlook.
He played through plenty of pain this year and nothing was going to stop him representing his country.
Managed to get through the rest of the year and play that game in PNG with no troubles, and it pulled up fine, so it's right to go.
From one Gidley to another, and what about this tackle from brother Matt to launch St Helens into the English Super League Grand Final? It could be a double celebration in the Gidley household if St Helens can beat either Leeds or Wigan on October 13th. Back at the Knights, and the club today re-signed Premier League Player of the Year Scott Duro to a one-year deal. Fresh from a win with Parramatta in the Premier League Grand Final, Richard Fayoso signed a 2-year deal with Newcastle. And finally, after being snubbed during the Rugby World Cup, Energy Australia Stadium has been chosen to host the clash between England and the Kiwis during the Rugby League World Cup on November 8 next year. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It's been 48 years since the last complete overhaul of the Australian Army's vehicle fleet, but now Tomago firm GH Varley looks set to have a hand in its rejuvenation. Defence Minister Brendan Nelson today announced that under Project Overlander, Varley will provide modules for more than 6,000 medium and heavyweight vehicles.
Over $3 billion, and we expect about 100 million of that, and around 400 jobs will come to the Hunter through GH Varley if we get the contract signed.
This will mean quality apprenticeships, opportunities for the long term for our region.
It's expected the contract will be signed within 3 months. The Minister says the move towards heavier vehicle protection has been driven by the danger faced by Australian troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. Varley hopes this is just the start. It's also in the running for a Phase 2 defence contract, a project worth double the one it's been awarded.
Recognised by the fact that they've secured Joint Strike Fighter contracts, recognised from the work they've done with the Varley Fire Commander through to the military modules.
Christy Carter, NBN News.
A group of 6 coal companies, including BHP Billiton and Centennial Coal, has approval to build the third loader on land next to the existing ones at Kooragang Island. Now all they need is the money.
We're just about to start the serious talking to the banks to arrange the funding for the project.
Expected to boost coal exports by 30 million tonnes a year and help reduce the shipping queue, the facility will also create jobs.
400 to 500 jobs during the construction phase, and we expect a lot of that workforce will be drawn from this region.
It could be operating as early as 2010, but work will begin within weeks to dredge the north arm of the Hunter River, allowing coal ships to access the new site. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Police are hot on the tail of arsonists believed to be responsible for at least half of the 8 separate fires which have consumed bush and scrub across Port Stephens since last weekend. It's all because of teams like this one, made up of fire investigators and forensic police. Today they were scouring the dense scrub at Box Beach near Shoal Bay, examining charred trees, ash and debris for clues as to how and where a bushfire, which burnt through the Tomaree National Park on Sunday night, started. It's an exact science. While it just looks like burnt trees to most, fire investigators can tell which direction the fire was carried and track it right back to its starting point.
Every fire leaves indicators, leaves little signs that enable us to track the run of the fire.
From there, if suspicious, forensic police will analyse the ash and debris at the origin point. Although vital, fire investigation is only one part of the job to catch arsonists, with officers also needing help from the public.
If you know something, if you've seen something suspicious, by all means please call the police.
Christy Carter, NBN News.
The launch of my third campaign as Labor's candidate to represent Newcastle in the Federal Parliament.
Captain Cook discovered Nobbies on the 10th of May 1770, calling it a small clump of an island. Today, the replica of his famous ship Endeavour rounded that same clump after sailing up from its current home at the National Maritime Museum in Sydney. Endeavour is open to the public over the weekend and is tied up at the old tug wharves near the pilot station. She's just one of the stars of this Sunday's festival, which will also feature the sailing ship James Craig, which is due to arrive tomorrow evening. 2 Royal Australian Navy Huon-class minesweepers are in town. HMAS Yarra and HMAS Norman will be on display at the Throsby Wharf, along with the Customs patrol vessel Roebuck Bay. The National Ski Racing Classic will feature 4 current world champion skiers on a course between Honeysuckle and the pilot station. There'll be a wakeboarding display by world champ Harley Clifford, a fly past by the Royal Newcastle Aero Club. And all the activity will coincide with the Matara Grand Parade, which will this year start at Honeysuckle Drive at 11 o'clock on Sunday and march up Wharf Road to Nobbies Beach.
There's cause for new hope tonight for thousands of Australian women, with a team of Hunter researchers undertaking a unique new clinical trial. It involves the testing of postmenopausal women who are in remission, but still have a small ongoing risk of a recurrence.
No one previously has tried to prevent recurrences from occurring after treatment is finished, but at the present time, treatment goes for about 5 years for hormone-sensitive breast cancers, and then we stop.
Professor John Forbes is questioning that 5-year period, a patient prompting the concept of longer-term treatment.
She said perhaps it's like treating blood pressure or cholesterol. You get these things back to normal, but you don't stop treatment. You keep it going, or even diabetes. And it was really quite confronting for me because she was absolutely right.
A team of researchers from all over Australia, including a Newcastle contingent, is also hoping to develop a blood test to detect not only breast cancer but other types of cancer too.
The aim is to bring these together to identify change in the blood that is an indicator of breast cancer risk.
The University of Newcastle will receive close to $6 million in funding for breast cancer research, some of which has come from fundraising events and community donations.
The community really does make a difference in supporting these things.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
How much of a disappointment was it to get this injury at that stage?
Well, it was just really hard. Like, I've missed 5 cuts this year by just one shot, and that's since I've had the pain. And It's just been really hard to take, actually. I've never had an injury before playing on tour, and it's been difficult, but it has opened my eyes as to what I might do in the future if this doesn't get better.
So, Cherie, have you played your last European tour, overseas tour?
I'm definitely going to go back next year. Might not be for a full season, but I definitely want to go back out because I really felt my game was improving before I went out there this year, and I just really want to see where I can go again.
Another year, another 2 years?
I'll always play in Australia, definitely. I'm looking forward to the Australian tournaments in January, and really want to get into coaching. It's something that I'm going to be doing while I'm sort of injured or recovering.
What's the process? Surgery next week?
Surgery on Thursday, and then there'll be a lot of physio work afterwards, and it'll take a couple of months before it's going to really mend.
Hunter motocross champion Craig Anderson never misses the local leg of the National Supermoto Series, even if his strength is just a third of the course.
It'd be good for the, if it was 50-50, it'd be sweet for us motocross guys, because the road guys are just so much faster on the tar. But no, it's good fun, and I'm learning every time I go out, so that's the main thing.
Supermoto really represents thinking outside the motorsport square, a challenge if there ever was one, riding on two surfaces with slick tyres.
First up, it's a little bit slippery with the front tyres with no tread on them, but the back hangs out, so it's sort of sliding on the dirt, sliding on the tar. It's good fun.
His daughter Sophie thinks so too, an escape from the rigours of the HSC, which, by the way, starts 2 weeks from today.
It's my main priority. Racing, however, makes my mind, takes the stress out. Love doing it. It's absolutely fabulous.
The father-daughter pairing from Cessnock will race in the veterans and women's sections, but they'll be on track at the same time. Much like the event itself, it's all about unlikely combinations.
On these practice days, I try to give her a bit of a hand. She never takes any notice, so.
Perhaps she should. Her old man is second in the vets, while the 17-year-old is fourth in the women's in her second year of racing. In the main event, Sydney's Rodney Taplin and Angus Reiki from Bowral lead the series, going into the second and third rounds at Cameron Park this weekend. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Police investigating the disappearance of Paul Bell had suspicions about what was inside this storage shed at Tomago, north of Newcastle, applying for a search warrant earlier this week. Late yesterday, detectives made a chilling discovery when they finally gained access.
Police located a number of items, including a large sealed plastic drum, which appeared to contain a liquid substance. Now, with the assistance of New South Wales Fire Brigade and the police rescue, the drum was opened and what appears to be human remains were located within the drum.
The shed had been leased to one of Mr Bell's former employees for 7 weeks. Police had been investigating the relationship between Mr Bell and the former employee, a 26-year-old man whose body was found in early August after an apparent suicide. The discovery of the barrel has left employees of the all-purpose self-storage shattered.
It was a big shock to us. You know, we're not used to this type of thing happening within our business. We had no reason to believe that anything of this nature should have been in that unit.
Today, outside the Nobbies Beach kiosk Mr Bell managed for several years, beachgoers were also in disbelief.
It's pretty tragic. I mean, stuff like that doesn't happen in Newcastle.
It's pretty disgusting, isn't it?
Yes, I guess we think of the one over in South Australia where all the people in the barrels there. Terrible.
The barrel will be examined on Monday and police are preparing a brief of evidence for the coroner. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
27-year-old Christopher Nancaro and 24-year-old Anne-Marie Kropp had moved to the Gold Coast hinterland to start a new life. Not long after, the couple, originally from Maitland, were found dead inside their new home with stab wounds. The investigation, now in its 8th year, was reviewed in April 2006, resulting in a breakthrough of sorts. In June, police centred their inquiries around Springbrook and Murwillumbah, with a witness then coming forward. Gold Coast detectives have since released this impression of a man who was seen in the couple's carport at around the time of the murder. A black beanie, which is being scrutinised by forensics, was also found inside the house, and police say it didn't belong to the victims. Clothing and blood originally found at the crime scene have also been re-examined. A reward of $250,000 is being offered for information which may lead to a conviction. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
The development series is usually where the next generation of drivers get noticed by the big teams, but some were going to extremes in order to catch their eye. Drew Russell at least got a few laps under the belt before his race ended. The 18-year-old had a bit of explaining to do back in the pits. His dad manages the team, with the Holden trucked back for repairs. While Ryan Brown's teammate Luke Yolden won the race and round, the 21-year-old Newcastle driver finished 20th. Closer to home, and the National Supermoto Series is at Cameron Park Racetrack this weekend. It wasn't just the two-wheeled machines involved, with the showing of quad bikes doing their thing as well. Raced mostly on tar, the dirt section of the track makes it tricky, especially for riders only involved this weekend.
The bike is great, it's handling really well, and I'm getting to know what the tyres feel like on the tar now, getting a bit of a slide happening, and that's, I get more confidence, so that's the main thing.
And it showed in the Super Pole race for the multiple Australian motocross champion who dominated the hot lap style qualifier to take top spot. Fourth after initial qualifying, Anderson showed up the series top riders as the only one to race a sub 1 minute 10-second time.
I thought when the first qualifying I'd done a 1:10, and then I thought, geez, I'm not going to go any faster than that. That's it, that's all I got, and then that happened. So anything can happen.
Racing continues tomorrow.
The field's looking real strong. All dudes are here trying to get their spot into the Aussie titles and hopefully a crack at the Worlds down at Torquay at Easter.
There was plenty of noise made about this year's Matara Festival, and the Grand Parade did its best to deliver. There were cars, characters and more cars, real head-turners, as Wharf Road lived up to its reputation as hot rod heaven.
We came in when our children were young, but this is a lot bigger and, well, better than it used to be.
Organisers say it could be better. Almost 3,000 people and 80 floats doubled the parade size, complete with growing pains.
It was bigger than we expected, and obviously we had a few hiccups because it was so big. It basically stopped half the town, people coming in and out.
Matara is an Aboriginal word which means hand of friendship. Today that hand reached for the harbour, linking the parade with the National Maritime Festival for the first time.
Second to the Sydney to Hobart, this is the largest maritime event of its kind in Australia because we're able to use the harbour as a recreational playground on the day.
It's also a working harbour, and one which was hard work for some. There was tugboat ballet for the boys, guns for the girls on the Navy Mine Hunters, and free harbour cruises. In the shadow of maritime history, a look at the future, with World Junior Wakeboarding champion Harley Clifford showing just how far things have come. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Primarily a go-kart track, Cameron Park makes a pretty handy supermoto circuit as well, with riders using every inch of it in the Premier class. After a mixed opening day, Newcastle's Craig Anderson started third on the grid for race 1 of round 3, but it quickly turned into a 2-horse race, with Anders Recchi and Rodney Taplin going for it. The latter set the quickest lap time, but it wasn't good enough to pass Recchi, who took the honours in the opening race. There was horsepower on show at Newcastle Harbour today as well, with ski racing featuring at today's Maritime Festival. Boasting twice the power of a V8 supercar, only the world's best can hang on to the back of these speed machines, and several were on show today, including current junior world champion Trudy Stout. And local surfers continue to shine at the National Grom Search event at Bar Beach. The seeded surfers hit the water for the first time today in the under-16s boys, and Ryan Callanan was among the heat winners. Runner-up here last year, he's eyeing off the top prize this time around.
I got through my first heat, so I was pretty happy. It was pretty fun. Had like 5 and a 7, I think, and I was stoked to get through.
One of his best mates from the Central Coast, Wade Carmichael, will have a lot to say about who takes this one out though, while fellow Newcastle board rider Wes Bainbridge was again impressive, winning his heat as they all strive for that spot at the Worlds at Easter.
For so long now, they've been trying to keep horse flu out of the Newcastle Jockey Club. Now it's all about keeping it in.
We've been very strict on the biosecurity here, and although some people thought it was inevitable, we thought we were winning the battle.
I don't think we can continue to rely on full biosecurity being implemented across the state to stop the spread.
This afternoon, Newcastle racing officials had their worst fears realised when the results of a horse tested on site yesterday came back positive.
The signs aren't as good this time around as they have been in the past, and that's a major concern to us because all the horses at Newcastle are again vaccinated.
We're hoping that the vaccine that we had last Saturday will have some effect, and it may be just a mild case that we get.
Even then, early indications suggest infected horses might not be racing for at least 3 months. Now, more than ever before, the Rich Boxing Day meeting is in doubt, and what presented as a serious money spinner is now looming as a financial disaster.
To be one of the last to get it in the racing industry, it's really going to put Newcastle behind the 8 ball.
More thoroughbreds have since been tested, with vets warning it'll take just days, perhaps even hours, before the flu's infected all 350 horses stabled at the Broadmeadow base. Were you left with any doubt when you were examining them this morning?
Not really, no. Not in my opinion. I've never seen anything like this in 20 years I've been here.
This latest round of testing follows a scare over the weekend when horses stabled just a few hundred metres from the Jockey Club started showing flu-like symptoms. Those tests came back negative, but it makes no difference now with the racing schedule at Broadmeadow, indeed livelihoods thrown into disarray. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
As soon as flames began consuming bushland on the Tilligary Peninsula, our native fauna like this possum was on the move, beginning the fight for survival. The 2,300 hectares of bushland destruction will also impact on the Tilligary's koala population.
Some of the best swamp mahogany forests that I have seen have gone up in flames.
The veterinary care has already started for 3 marsupials rescued by the volunteer carers of the Hunter Koala Preservation Society and the Native Animal Trust. This male, nicknamed Jack, is recovering well from an eye injury as well as the effects of smoke and is expected to return to the bush. 3-month-old Joey Missy was orphaned, discarded by her mother whilst parent and offspring were perched high in the tree canopy. But she's making an impressive recovery after initially being brought in close to death.
And that one's under intensive care now, will be for the next 6 to 12 months. And that is a female, so we're really working hard on her to make sure she survives.
Carers say the survival of injured fauna relies on the quick actions of those who find it.
Because it's very, very important if people see a sick koala or a little joey that's left, immediately to ring us, not leave them there all day.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
They've gone from singing in the shower to rocking out on stage. Rock stars for a day, performing in the brilliant glare of flashing lights, surrounded by professional equipment, and all in front of an adoring audience. This is the end result of a 6-week program giving emerging musos the chance to shine as weekend warriors.
These people have never played in a band before. They usually stay-at-home musicians.
It's a big change from strumming at home to a CD or singing into a hairbrush. But with some careful coaching, they performed like seasoned pros.
It's all about having fun, getting to meet people who have the same aspirations and dreams as yourself.
And while those dreams might involve making millions as a rock god, this gig was all for charity, raising $500 for the music therapy program at the John Hunter Children's Hospital.
Lucky, very lucky boy there, Joel Griffith.
Cooling his jets today, Joel Griffiths kept his head down at the team's recovery session, but as his coach realised just how close he came to losing the chief playmaker to suspension, he was keen to make sure all his players reel in the headstrong play. In all, 6 Jets players found their way into the referee's bad book last night, leaving Van Egmond to launch his own crackdown on ill discipline.
People can get frustrated within the game, but you can't take matters into your own hands and you can't do ill-disciplined things.
There were several contentious decisions on a night of drama at Gosford. Only minutes after Mariners keeper Danny Vukovic was cleared of any wrongdoing at one end, his team went 1-0 up at the other. Mark Bridge squeezing home an equaliser just 8 minutes from time. After a week where words fueled the leader, Bridge made sure his action spoke for the whole side in an effort directed straight at rival coach Laurie McKenna.
You know, you can't really come out and say we're a two-man team. We showed last night that we should have easily beaten them.
Bridge, along with Stu Mishalik and Adam DePuzzo, now leave for Olyrood duty in Lebanon, leaving the coach to bring in fresh players to cover the short term and leaving fringe starters at the Jets, with little doubt where they stand.
It's a real test to some of the other players within the squad to make sure that they're within the mix this weekend, because if they're not and other people are coming in from outside the group, that doesn't speak volumes for them. They've got to make sure that they show enough urgency and intensity at training sessions and enough desire for them to be warranted to be selected this week.
If only his start to the World Supersport Series was as solid as his back half of the year, and Brock Parkes could have pressed for the title. As it stood by the last race, Parkes needed one more strong performance to move into second overall on the championship standings. Fast heading into a head-to-head battle with the series champion Keenan Sofoglu, the two put on a show for the Magny Court crowd. On fading tyres, Parks opted for the security of riding for second place on the podium and good enough to see him secure second overall for the series. With his Turkish rival moving on next year, his plans are obvious. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Gone but not forgotten, murder victim Frank Newbury's presence is still strong inside his grocery store. News of a $100,000 reward posted by the state government for information leading to the conviction of his killer has been enthusiastically welcomed.
We're really ecstatic and we just hope that something will come out of this now and we'll finally be able to get somebody for Frank's murder.
The police minister made the much-anticipated announcement today in the hope of breathing fresh life into the 7-month-old investigation.
It's quite crass, quite ugly way to say it, but the lure of cash might in fact bring someone forward who, for whatever reason in the past, hasn't brought forward the information that they have.
Police say the reward marks the start of the next phase of their investigation and deny it was made following a lack of leads in the case.
This is an ongoing and very live investigation. We certainly have not closed the investigation at this time. We have a lot of avenues to continue the investigation and inquiries.
Police are still trying to find a man fitting this image who was seen leaving Frank's store around the time of his murder. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The first case of horse flu at Broadmeadow was confirmed yesterday. By this morning, another 12 animals had tested positive and hundreds more are expected to follow suit shortly. As the virus tightens its grip on the state's training centres, Newcastle Jockey Club can at least take heart in the fact that it can continue to stage other events at the facility.
We've got a big seniors expo here tomorrow as we speak, so we're very fortunate that we've concentrated on that side of it, and at present that's our sole income.
In fact, it's all about looking on the brightest side of what is a very dark situation, with track management already working on ways to ensure, horses or not, they won't lose their biggest money spinner of the year.
We've still got plans in place to make Boxing Day still Newcastle's biggest and best party, and if we can have a race meeting, well, that'll be a great bonus.
As for the horses themselves, they now won't receive vaccine booster shots this Saturday, but Racing New South Wales says it will review the situation in a few weeks' time if some animals remain uninfected. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Rose Group and Colin Allied both want to develop the area surrounding Catherine Hill Bay south of Newcastle. There's currently around 100 cottages in the sleepy former mining village. Around 1,000 new dwellings are proposed. Locals have been fighting the plans, and now people who don't even live there but want to save the bay from overdevelopment are speaking out. Newcastle jeweller Paul Carruthers grew up surfing there.
Not against development, but the amount of development that's proposed is just over the top, shouldn't happen, bad planning.
The Friends of Catho published a form letter today asking people to fill it out and send it to the planning department.
If we can get the more objections we can get into the planning department, the more they'll say, hey, a lot of people really value this. This is something that we should look at again and not just tick off.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Since 1979, the Jack Newton Jr. Invitational has grown into one of the biggest tournaments of its kind in the world. The international flavour this year has led to a tri-series between leading Australian, South African and New Zealand players, the latter keen to restore some national pride after the weekend.
Definitely after the rugby, so team's pretty good, I think, yeah.
The lone female in the South African squad, Nicole Kofal, is playing overseas for the first time and knows the competition will be tough.
The players, are amazing. I've seen some really top players. Most of them are probably going to go professional. But, I'm actually worried about the competition.
Daniel Nisbet isn't. The defending champion is hoping to go back-to-back this year and earn a spot at the Australian Open in the process.
I've been playing really well, feel confident with my swing and my game, so hopefully come back and win it again this year.
Finals day, and that meant everyone was fighting for the best waves at Bar Beach for one of the country's premier junior events. Ryan Callanan didn't think he had a hope as the clock wound down, but he pulled out a 7.37-point ride, shooting to the top with just minutes remaining.
Oh, I'm so happy. I got second last year. I'm just stoked to get one better, and especially at my local break with all my friends around watching me.
It was a much more comfortable final for fellow Merewether surfer Philippa Anderson, who dominated the under-16 girls. Like Ryan, she'll now head to Torquay at Easter for the Australian Grom Search final.
I just hope I go good down there. I went down last year as a wild card, didn't go that good, but I just hope to take it out this year, hopefully.
Lake Munmora's Jack Scollard put up a great fight in the 14s decider with a late surge that almost got him across the line. But the number one rated surfer for his age in Australia, Jake Sylvester, again took top spot and rounded out a Merewether trifecta.
I was so nervous, I just wanted the clock to go off straight away. I was just getting scared out there, but I managed to come out on top still.
You may have seen them around Newcastle, picking up rubbish or just driving through the city. The trial of Newcastle Council's flowered biodiesel trucks and cars has been such a resounding success, 100 more fleet vehicles will soon be filling up their tanks with the blended fuel. It means Council can reduce its reliance on finite products like diesel by around 20% without an impact on vehicle performance.
At a 20% blend, there's hardly any difference in fuel consumption at all or power.
Using biodiesel also reduces exhaust smoke and emissions, all while recycling cooking oil which used to go into landfill. Recognised internationally, the pilot program sets a great example for other organisations with large diesel fleets.
It's one of those simple things that councils and big organisations can do straight away, and then there's no value or loss when you go to sell the vehicle.
Jessica Phillis, NBN News.
My boyfriend actually ducked. He was inside with me and he got on the floor and he ducked and he thought he got hit, and then I just came out and there was just all these lightning sparks coming off the tree.
The rain was pretty heavy and the lightning was just, and the cracks of thunder was absolutely phenomenal.